Hello and welcome to another episode of Atomic Vinyl Reviews. My name's Jacob and this is actually probably the longest between videos that I've ever done at the moment. I've been on a bit of a hiatus for quite a while now. Yeah, I'm back at least doing this one-off video. I might do a couple more, we'll see. I don't know if I'm like back or not, but yeah, today I thought I'd do a quick video because I happened to get something pretty damn interesting, as you can see, before your eyes. First, I'll just say I'm here with my little doggy, Coffee. You may have seen her on the channel before. She's just having a nap back here. So say hi to the people, Coffee. So yeah, she's doing well. But let's get back to it. So this isn't really an unboxing or like a proper in-depth review. I just want to kind of show off this thing to you guys real quick. Because, yeah, again, I haven't filmed myself at all in such a long time or done any review or video of anything for a while. So I'm just going to take it slow getting back into it. But I really did think you guys might want to take a look at this. This is the massive Mezco Toyz Godzilla. I don't remember the exact product name. I think it just has a pretty generic Godzilla name. It came with a beautiful box, by the way, which you guys can see over there. I will definitely need to do something with this. Use it as a display poster or something, because that is so cool. Big box, so you got the Mezco Toyz logo. It looked impressive in videos and photos that I've seen, but in person, the presence of this thing was damn worth it. So I got lucky and I wasn't planning on getting this initially, but I kind of wanted to splurge on something nice. And also I happened to, timing wise, get lucky and this thing was on sale for 20% off at Pop Culture, which is an Australian seller of action figures and stuff. So I got lucky and got this big guy here. And, oh, I'm glad I did, because this thing is so cool. Out of the recent figures that I've got, a few of them have quite stood out to me as much as this thing. Since I haven't been filming over the last year or however long it's been since I've put out a video, I have got a number of really, really cool figures as well. I've been collecting this whole time, just not really filming any more unboxings during that time, which was kind of cathartic for a bit, because as much as I love making these videos, it is quite taxing mentally when you just want to enjoy opening up a box, but you have to have a camera out and be talking and like doing all that stuff, and then the editing and all that stuff. And I kind of just needed to put that behind me for a while, because I'm not going to get into it, but a lot of life stressful stuff happened. And yeah, but as you can see, I got some pretty cool things. Like there's just a quick little example of some real cool stuff. Got the W Dragon 2019 Ghidorah there, which is definitely one that I was thinking of reviewing for you guys, but I don't remember if I filmed that at all or not. So this big guy here, this thing, I don't remember how tall it is, but there's my hand next to it just for comparison. So just his foot there is huge, bigger than the palm of my hand for sure. Really, really great detail. I believe this is kind of a generic Heisei Godzilla. I would say it's somewhere between the 1989 and 1991 variant, but it definitely is a really great representation of that Heisei design that we know and love, especially the face on this thing. Detailing, they just got perfect. I mean, look at that expression, that cat-like detail on the face. The teeth are nice and dense and sharply sculpted, beautifully painted. The eyes have great personality. Got some yellows and sort of browny reds in there. Nice glossy finish on them. Really love the nose on this guy. Just look at that. Great detailing. Like a big X+. Maybe a slightly softer sculpt than an X+, but not by much. And especially at this scale, yeah, really love that. And this figure is somewhat articulated, although it mainly functions as a statue. I'd say the articulation isn't really close to what we've come to sort of expect from like monster arts or even like NECA and whatnot. The pose is kind of fixed, especially with the legs and the tail. I'll get to that because that's kind of where my only gripes of this figure lie. But regardless, this thing is still really, really cool. As you guys may know, this thing does have a gimmick with some light and sound. So what you do when you get this thing out of the box is you put the batteries in. It did come with batteries like in the box and like little plastic wrap that you have to put in. The electronics are on the base of the tail. Screws on really easy, so that's all great. Just to show you guys, tail is made of a nice rubbery material, which is a bit different, but the rest of this thing is kind of a harder plastic. Nothing brittle feeling, but definitely like a nice solid hard plastic, very similar to the giant Mezco Kong figure, which I do also have, which this thing is comparable to in terms of size, but I think especially with the length of the tail and just the build of this guy, feels even more massive to me. The way you activate the gimmick with this guy is not through a button per se, but there's a sensor on the top of his head that I'm not sure exactly how it works, but it probably works in the same way like those touch lamps work, where you have like a metal lamp and you just lightly touch it with your fingers and that activates it. So you kind of just pet him on top of the head, which on mine, it's a little iffy. Sometimes I'm like, oh, there we go. Oh, well, you got to see a bit of the light there, but sometimes you gotta keep going. There we go. Oh, I love that roar. That's like the very sort of 1984, 1989 classic Heisei, early Heisei era roar. Really deep and guttural. Guttural? Saying that wrong. Roar, but yeah, really great sound. Hopefully it's coming through on the video here. In person, it sounds really nice and loud and comes from the mouth, I think, actually, is where the main sound's coming from. So it's really well done, the sound element. There we go, the light. Just actually really nice and bright on this thing. It would be even brighter if I had the light off in here, because this is a quite well-lit room and it's even visible on camera and looks really cool in the mouth. So it does just kind of work randomly, very similar to the Kyoku. Unfortunately, we don't have any beam effect, but you can see the beam there, what it is meant to be like, but you could definitely probably use some translucent something or another to stick in his mouth to have a cool effect, or some fog or something like that if you really wanted to mess around with that. But yeah, real nice. So I was just saying, very similar to the Kyoku, if I'm saying that right, the lights, music and sound Godzilla 89 from Monster Arts, which is a slightly bigger variant, which I do have, and I'm going to bring in a bunch of other figures to compare this to, but just to show you guys, really similar figure, except for this one is much more articulated, though limited in some ways as well. And this has actually been one of my favorite figures for a long time as well. So just getting like an even more massive variant of it basically is a really cool thing to have. This one too also has like a little button, not a sensor, but it has a button back here. And this one, I've taken the batteries out of him at the moment, so he's not working, but it does very similar things, the light in the mouth and the spines, and kind of interchanges between roars, and also plays music. So a little different, but these figures are kind of similar in a lot of ways, so I thought they were very much worth comparing here. And as you can see, this one was already a bigger figure for Monster Arts. This is kind of like a small X Plus that's articulated, is the way I describe it. But when you put the two together, this one is massive. So here's an assortment of various other Heisei Godzilla figures in my collection. You can see this guy really dwarfs all of them, even though I suspected that he would actually be about the same size as this kind of derpy and banged up looking figure here, which is actually a Concord, I believe is the brand Heisei Godzilla, I think 89 probably. This guy is a copy of some kind of quite well-known resin kit, I believe, but It's kind of been warped a bit, looks a little weird, and obviously my one is quite damaged. I think I have his other hand somewhere. If not, I could probably resculpt one, but overall looks kind of derpy. But this one, when I got it, I thought, damn, that's a really huge figure. I can fix it up and make it look really cool. Kind of hoping to get something like this guy out of it. But I haven't gotten to that yet, as you can see. But yeah, you can see got some parts of his tail and whatnot here, which is also huge. Turns out this figure here is even bigger than this one by a fairly substantial amount. And obviously we got some X Plus figures here. These are the Yuji Sakai modeling collection figures. These are my two Heisei versions that I have from that series. We got the 1991 Godzilla here. So this is like one of my all-time favorite figures and favorite versions of Godzilla in general. I absolutely adore this thing and this particular version of the 1991 Godzilla. So he's the one with that like really aggressive looking face, the kind of more pointy top to his head, and the very puffed up chest. So this one's a great variant, and it's the one that I think of from the 1991 film the most. If you are familiar with recent monster art, I say recent, it's been kind of out for a while now, but this is the 1991 decisive battle version. This is from towards the end of the movie when he was battling Mecha King Ghidorah, and this one is kind of a more generic looking Heisei design. It doesn't have quite the features of this one, where it's actually a lot more similar to the 89 design, which I do adore as well. But interesting that they went with this variant. Although the Haya Toys one that's coming out, I don't know whether it'll be out or not by the time this video comes out. Probably won't be. So that one is looking amazing, and I'm glad we're getting that. But yeah, just showing the comparison between these two. So these are kind of smaller for X Plus figures. They're 30 centimeter series, but they're a little shorter. They're more like 27 or 28 centimeters, give or take. The other one that I have, I forgot the year. I'm not sure if this is from, it's one of the middle films in the Heisei era, where it's versus Mothra or Space Godzilla or Mecha Godzilla 2, one of those films. Again, beautiful figure, just a really great representation of the Heisei design. And I figured that it would be a really nice comparison to this one, because this one is like a very generic sort of Heisei era design, but is a really cool version of it. The sculpts I do prefer on these two, especially the crispness, because they are Yuji Sakai sculpts. So very sharp, very accurate to the films, just very lively. But you can't really complain with this thing either. Like, yeah, really cool. Again, just that presence is so great. Obviously here we got the smaller side of things. You've already heard me talk about the monster arts here, which is the smallest of the bunch that I have out at the moment. So yeah, just barely gets up to his knee. We got the Bandai Movie Monster Series 1991, got the Kokyo Kyoku, unfortunately shortened to KKK Monster Arts 1989 one there, which I already talked about, and we have the Super 7 1989 just back here, which is a little more substantial for an articulated figure. Unfortunately, I don't have any of like the NECA ones on hand. The 89 NECA would also be nice to bring in. That one would scale somewhere between the Bandai and the Tokyo Kyoku one here, I believe. That gives you a rough idea of how big this thing is. So yeah, really substantial, really cool. Again, I kind of skipped over the articulation. I wasn't intending to, because I was intending to keep this review kind of light, but since we're here, I might as well kind of go over it. Very stiff articulation. These arms kind of just move in these sockets here, no articulation here. Very similar to the Kong again. There's articulation of the hands, but they just kind of spin because they're quite stiff. The head turns like this. It does break the sculpt somewhat, and I don't really mind, more of a statue, so I'm just going to kind of not mess with that too much. And the mouth does move up and down a little bit. Not that much range, but that's all right. It looks really cool again with those teeth, and just the detail is so nice. So nice at this scale. And the legs, very limited articulation-wise. There is a joint here, and these don't bend, they somewhat spin, but this is less of an articulation point and more of like a fused joint where they just put the pieces together just under the knee here. This one does somewhat spin, but right now it's not really wanting to, as you can see. And there is some movement in this bit, but I'm not even going to mess with that, though you can push it, and if you're delicate, I'm sure you can kind of get the leg to kick up. But since his feet, they don't pivot or anything, they don't have any sort of sophisticated joint work like these figures here do. It's not really much that we can do there, so I'm just going to generally leave it like that. Get a nice look at that dirty off-bone white on the nails. Really nice. Nice look at those details. The last bit of articulation, and where I kind of have the biggest issue with this figure, which is kind of more of a QC thing than a design thing in general, but I guess the design does play into it, is with the tail. So as I mentioned earlier, it is a rubbery material, which is cool in and of itself, just on its own, but what I worry about is long term. This stuff may degrade a bit faster than the hard plastic. I really would have preferred if they did something along the lines of like a Monster Arts tail on a bigger scale. Very similar to how NECA did their massive Godzilla 2014 30 centimeter tall or 12-inch tall version, where that figure was very similar to the small NECA 2014, but it did have segments that were articulated very similar to like a Monster Arts figure, rather than having something like this with a bendy wire type thing and like this squishy rubber skin. So there is some sort of rigid system in it that does hold its pose. I don't feel too comfortable messing with it, honestly, and I've heard that from a lot of people, but the main reason why not is because a QC thing, I did have some gaps in the tail. Where is it? There we go. Right there, right out of the box, that was already splitting, and I'm not really sure what to do there. This stuff's sort of hard to glue together. That's probably why it's already doing this. Even if they use whatever industrial glue they use at the factory, it's already splitting. I would probably just leave the tail, maybe just bend it once if you really have to. Because something like this might happen, and the more you mess with it, the more that's going to happen, as you can see right there. Yeah, I don't like that. That's not great. You got the spine sort of peeling out. Maybe if you just mess with it once to get it in the pose that you want, and then just leave it like that for, you know, display purposes, because, you know, it would be nice to be able to move this tail into a more upright posture sometimes to fit in various different contexts on your shelf. For example, like these figures here, fortunately they do have the little tail stand thing, which I am less bothered by that than some people out there. I do really like that the tail's kind of hovering. It's kind of a common thing that Sakai does with his Godzilla designs, but it does mean that there's a little block, but whatever. That's neither here nor there. What I'm trying to point out is we got this nice bend in the tail, so we can kind of put him kind of between other figures and closer to the wall of like a display shelf and whatnot. But this guy really needs a lot of room right behind him to fit anywhere. The tip of his tail is, the very, very tip is actually more of a rigid plastic there, and it kind of morphs into rubber around here, which is interesting. As you saw earlier, the spines do light up, so they are like a translucent material that's been painted over the top to look like bone. They're really effective as well, which is really cool. Very similar to, again, the Aokyo Kyoku guy here, although this guy's got more translucent effect to his spines. But yeah, come on. There. I'm trying to get this guy to roar to end off the video, but as you can see, mine is a little iffy. There we go. Wait. There we go. I got him to roar, finally. So that is it for this video, guys. I hope you liked it. I don't know if or when I'll have another video up, as I don't really plan to get back into these videos kind of full-time just yet, but I do want to keep this channel going because, yeah, I'm still obviously a very passionate and prolific collector of this sort of stuff, as you can see, so that has not waned at all. If you're a long-time viewer, thank you so much for coming back And for any of you new people here, welcome. May your vinyl be a radiated vinyl. Over and out.